My name is Billy Larkin. I'm 35 years old. And right now, every phone in my grandmother's backyard is buzzing at the same time, because my mother just dropped a message into our family group chat. Every aunt, uncle, and cousin, 48 relatives in all, with a single attachment, a bill. $347,000. The subject line reads, "The cost of raising a failure." Today is Mother's Day. The whole family turns to look at me. They're waiting for me to cry or apologize or crumble. Here's what none of them know. The woman who billed me for raising me from birth didn't raise me for the first 7 years of my life. My grandmother did. I don't argue. I don't cry. I pick up my phone and send one thing into that group chat. A single photograph. By the next morning, 47 people have blocked my mother. The 48th is my grandmother. And she doesn't block her. She does something far worse. Welcome to my channel. Before I tell you the rest, if this story grabs you, hit like and subscribe. But only if you genuinely want to hear more. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Alright, let me take you back to the beginning. Mother's Day in Savannah starts early. The magnolias along Abercorn Street were already heavy with bloom by 7 a.m., and by the time I loaded my car with a 3-tier lemon pound cake and a cooler of fresh strawberry compote, the air was thick enough to chew. I'm a baker. I own Larkin's. 2 locations now, plus a catering arm that keeps me busier than I'd like to admit. I didn't plan this career. I was 2 years into a teaching degree at Georgia Southern when Grandma Pearl had her first stroke. Somebody had to be there. My mother wasn't volunteering. She'd only come back into my life when I was 7, after she married Gerald Vance and had Brooke. And even then her attention went to her new family, not her old one. Brooke was 13 at the time of Pearl's stroke. So I left school, moved back to Savannah, and spent the next year splitting my time between Pearl's bedside and a commercial kitchen I rented for $400 a month. The bakery grew out of necessity, not ambition. But none of that matters to my family. To them, I'm the one who dropped out. My mother, Marlene Vance, has a particular way of introducing her daughters. At any gathering, Brooke goes first. My baby, 27, getting married this fall to a wonderful attorney. Then me. And Billy, she makes cakes. She says cakes the way you'd say crafts about a child's glue project. I've catered weddings for 300 guests. I employ 11 people. Last year, I cleared more revenue than her real estate office, but in Marlene's version of the family, I'm still the dropout who plays with frosting. I pulled into Grandma Pearl's driveway that afternoon, carrying a cake I'd been up since 4 a.m. to finish. In my mother's purse, I'd later learn, was a message she'd drafted 3 weeks ago. Pearl Whitfield's house sits at the end of a dirt and gravel lane in Thunderbolt, just south of the city. It's a 1940s cottage with a screened porch that wraps around 3 sides, a ceiling fan that clicks on every 4th rotation, and a magnolia tree in the front yard so old it has its own lean. This is the only place I've ever felt completely safe. Grandma Pearl met me at the screen door. 81 years old, 5'2", hands still steady enough to thread a needle. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like lavender talc and sweet tea. "Let me see that cake, baby." She held it at arm's length, turned it once, nodded. "You outdid yourself." Then she asked about the catering contract I'd landed last month. A corporate event for a Savannah hospitality group. She asked real questions. Revenue, staffing, timeline. Pearl was a bookkeeper her whole working life, and she respects numbers the way some people respect scripture. She's the only person in my family who treats my work like work. Inside, the house was already full. Dottie, my mother's younger sister, was arranging deviled eggs on a platter. Uncle Wayne was fiddling with the grill on the back deck. Cousins, second cousins, great aunts. The usual Whitfield spread for Mother's Day. And then I heard my mother's voice carrying from the kitchen. She was telling Dottie, loud enough for the hallway to catch it. "I've been paying paying for everything on my own for years. Nobody helps me, Nobody. I stopped walking, because that wasn't true. And Grandma Pearl, standing right behind me, squeezed my hand once under the dish towel. She knew it too. Here's the thing about a lie repeated long enough. It stops sounding like a lie. For weeks before Mother's Day, my mother had been working the phone tree. A comment here, a sigh there. Billy never comes around. Billy hasn't offered a dime for the wedding. I sacrificed everything, and what do I get? By the time the family gathered at Pearl's, the verdict was already in. I could feel it in the way people looked at me, a half-second too long, a smile that didn't reach the eyes. My cousin Tanner, 24, tried to be casual about it. Billy, when you gonna hook the family up with some free cakes? He laughed. A few people laughed with him. It was the kind of joke that isn't a joke. Brooke, my half-sister, touched my arm. Don't take it personally, Billy. He's just playing. Brooke means well, usually. She's 27, engaged to a corporate attorney named Garrett, and has spent her entire life as the easy daughter. The one who stayed in school, followed the script, never made Marlene frown. She doesn't know what it's like to be the other one. I carried the cake to the potluck table on the back deck. Sweet tea in glass pitchers sweating in the heat. Paper plates, citronella candles, a portable speaker playing gospel. Cicadas screaming from every live oak in the yard. Then every phone at the table buzzed at the same time. I felt mine vibrate in my back pocket. So did Dottie. So did Wayne. So did the cousins at the kids' table. 48 phones, 1 notification. I pulled mine out. Group chat. Whitfield family. Sender. Mom. And at the top of the message, a single word. Invoice. My mother set her glass of sweet tea down, smiled, and said, "Everyone, check your phones for me." I opened the message. The document was formatted like a professional invoice. Itemized, numbered, with a header she must have spent hours designing. It read, Marlene Vance, Statement of Account. Across the top, in bold serif font. Below that, my name. And then the line items: prenatal care and delivery, $9,000. Infant and toddler care, ages 0 to 3, $22,000. Childhood expenses, ages 4 through 7, $38,000. School years, ages 8 through 18, $96,000. Years I gave up for you, $90,000. College fund you wasted, $40,000. Emotional labor, 35 years, $52,000. Total, $347,000. At the bottom, in red text, pay it or admit to this family what you've always been. A failure I raised at a loss. I read it twice. The numbers were absurd, inflated, invented, pulled from nowhere. But the audience didn't care about accuracy. They cared about the performance, and Marlene had given them a performance. Around the table, people were scrolling through the invoice on their phones. Some shook their heads slowly. A few glanced at me with pity. Others wouldn't look at me at all. My mother sat across the table with her ankles crossed and her chin lifted. She looked like a woman who had just delivered a closing argument. Then I read the line again. Ages 0 to 3, 22,000. Ages 4 through 7, 38,000. She billed me for years she wasn't even there. She charged me for diapers she never changed, for bottles she never warmed, for nights she never sat up through. Those were Grandma Pearl's years, and Marlene just invoiced them as her own. I set my phone face down on the table. The cicadas hadn't stopped. The ceiling fan on the porch still clicked on every fourth rotation, but the air felt different now. Heavier, tighter, like the minutes before a summer storm rolls in off the coast. I ran the math in my head the way I do when a vendor shorts an order. If I say nothing, 48 people walk away believing I'm ungrateful, that I took and never gave back, that I wasted my mother's investment by dropping out of school, even though I left to take care of Pearl when nobody else would. My reputation in this family, already thin, goes to zero. And my daughter Lacey, 4 years old, asleep in her car seat in the driveway because Sam was going to bring her in after her nap, Lacey grows up hearing that her mama was the family burden. If I fight back the wrong way, if I scream, if I cry, if I call Marlene a liar in front of everyone, I become the dramatic one. The ungrateful daughter who can't even handle the truth on Mother's Day. Marlene wins either way. That's the design. She picked Mother's Day because who argues with their mother on Mother's Day? She sent it to 48 people because a crowd is a jury, and she'd already been coaching the witnesses for weeks. My Aunt Dottie leaned across the table. "Honey, do you want to say something?" I looked at her. I looked at my mother. Then I looked at the invoice again. Ages 0 to 7. She billed me for $60,000 worth of parenting she did not do. And somewhere in my phone, in a folder I haven't opened in months, was a photograph that could prove it. Under the table, I felt a hand close around mine. Pearl. She didn't say a word. She just held on. Firm, dry, steady. The same grip that used to walk me across this yard when I was 3. She knew what was in that invoice. She knew what years 0 through 7 really looked like. She was there. She was the only one who was there. I squeezed back. Here's what I decided in that moment. I wasn't going to narrate my childhood to a table full of people who'd already made up their minds. I wasn't going to list the nights Pearl rocked me to sleep, or the mornings she braided my hair before Head Start, or the summer she taught me to read, using the labels on canned goods because she couldn't afford picture books. No, telling people a story gives them room to doubt. Showing them doesn't. I had one photograph. I knew exactly which one. It was taken right here, on this porch, on a Mother's Day 33 years ago. Me, 2 years old, on Pearl's hip, both of us squinting in the sun. Behind us, the same magnolia, 20 feet shorter. In the photo, there is no Marlene. She was gone. She had been gone for over a year. And Pearl was holding me the way mothers hold their children when there is no one else to do it. I kept my voice even. "Mom, your invoice says you raised me from birth." Marlene tilted her chin higher. "That's right. Including ages 0 to 7. Every single day." I nodded slowly. "All right." I unlocked my phone, opened the camera roll, scrolled to a folder labeled Pearl. And I knew. She billed me for years she wasn't even there. Marlene spoke first. "Well, Billy? You read it?" Her voice carried across the yard like she was chairing a meeting, practiced, confident. "I did," I said. "So did 48 other people." "Good. Let them hear the truth." "Which truth, Mom?" She narrowed her eyes. "That I raised you. That I sacrificed for you. That I got nothing in return." "From birth?" I asked. "From birth. You're sure about that?" A pause. Half a second. Maybe less. Her smile didn't change, but her fingers tightened around the arm of her chair. Uncle Wayne, 73, sitting in a lawn chair near the grill, cleared his throat. He didn't say anything yet. He just tilted his head the way older men do when something doesn't add up. Marlene noticed. She turned to him fast. "Wayne, you remember. I was there every day." Wayne scratched his jaw. "Marlene, I remember Pearl having that baby quite a bit." "Temporarily," Marlene said. "While I was working?" "Working where?" Wayne asked. The yard went quiet. Somewhere a mockingbird was calling from the magnolia. The ceiling fan clicked. Marlene straightened her back. "I don't have to justify myself to you, Wayne." Then she turned to the rest of the table. "I don't have to justify myself to any of you. I'm the one who raised both my girls. I'm the one who went without so they could've." Dottie, who had been watching this with her fork frozen halfway to her mouth, lowered her plate. "Marlene, she has a point. Where exactly were you those first years?" Marlene's jaw clenched. "I was getting my life together. That's what mothers do. They rebuild." "And who had Billy while you were rebuilding?" Wayne asked. That's when Pearl set her fork down. I could feel the table shifting. Not physically, emotionally. The people who'd been nodding along with Marlene 5 minutes ago were now looking between her and Wayne, between her and Pearl, and the math wasn't adding up. I pressed, but gently. "Mom, Your invoice lists infant care at $22,000. That's right. And childhood expenses, 4 through 7, at $38,000. I raised you, Billy. What address were we living at when I was 3? Silence. Marlene blinked. We moved around. We didn't move around, Mom. I lived here. At this house. With Grandma. That was temporary. I already said that. 3 years is temporary? I was working, Billy. I was building a career so I could give you a future. Her voice climbed half an octave, and I recognized it. The tone she uses when a real estate deal is going sideways, and she needs the buyer to stop asking questions. Around the yard, phones were still glowing. People were rereading the invoice, and now they were reading it differently. Tanner lowered his phone. Aunt Dottie's lips were pressed into a thin line. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't calling her a liar. I was just asking dates and addresses, and the dates and addresses weren't matching the invoice. My cousin Tanner, the same one who'd joked about free cakes an hour ago, looked at his mother, Dottie, and whispered something I couldn't hear. Dottie nodded, then turned to Marlene. Marlene, she's got a point. Marlene's nostrils flared. You're all going to take her side? After everything I've done? Nobody answered. The cicadas filled the gap. I hadn't shown the photograph yet. I wanted to see how far she'd go. Marlene did what Marlene always does when she feels the room slipping. She stood up. She pushed her chair back, pressed both palms flat on the table, and addressed the crowd like a pastor at a revival. Let me be clear, she said. I carried that girl for 9 months. I gave birth to her. I came back for her. I enrolled her in school. I drove her to every activity, every doctor's appointment, every... You enrolled me in 3rd grade, I said. I was 8. Another silence. Because enrollment in 3rd grade means someone else handled kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, and everyone at this table went to school. They know the timeline. Marlene's voice sharpened. You are twisting everything. I'm not twisting anything. I'm stating a grade. Brooke, sitting next to Marlene, looked at her mother with an expression I hadn't seen before. Not anger, confusion. Mom, you always said you raised Billy alone from the beginning. I did. Then who enrolled her in kindergarten? Marlene turned to Brooke. Sweetheart, this isn't your concern. It's a simple question. The backyard felt smaller now. The potluck table, loaded with casseroles and cornbread and the lemon cake I'd been up since 4 to bake, sat between us like a referee's desk. Pearl stood. Not fast. She's 81 and her knees aren't what they were. But when Pearl Whitfield stands, people notice. She didn't say a word. She walked into the house through the screen door, and we all heard the spring creak and slap shut behind her. 30 seconds later, she came back out. In her hands, a shoebox. Old, bent at the corners, held together with a rubber band. She set it on the table between the sweet tea pitcher and the deviled eggs. Nobody touched it. The shoebox sat there like a witness waiting to testify, and every eye at the table tracked it. Pearl stood behind her chair, one hand resting on the back. This box, she said, has been in my closet for 30 years. Inside it are photographs, letters, and every receipt I kept from the time Billy was born until the day Marlene came back for her. Marlene's face went pale under her foundation. Mom, don't. Hush. Pearl didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She had a way of saying hush that made it sound like the final word in an argument, not a request, a ruling. I kept these because I'm a bookkeeper. That's what I do. I keep records. She looked at me. Billy, do you want me to open this? I shook my head. Not yet, Grandma. Let me handle this first. She nodded once and sat back down. But the box stayed on the table, rubber band still in place, right next to the sweet tea. I watched Marlene stare at it. She knew what was inside. She had to, because she was there when most of it was written. And the thing about records kept by a woman who spent 40 years balancing ledgers for a living is that they don't lie. They don't exaggerate. They don't round up for emotional labor. They just sit there, in a shoebox, quiet and exact, until someone needs them. Brooke leaned over and whispered to Marlene, I couldn't catch the words, but I caught the tone. It was the first time I'd heard Brooke whisper to our mother in a way that sounded like a question instead of an agreement. The shoebox hadn't even been opened, and it was already changing the air. I looked at my phone again. The group chat notification count was climbing. People who weren't at the cookout, cousins in Atlanta, an aunt in Jacksonville, Pearl's brother's kids in Macon, were responding. Most of them with question marks. A few with, "Marlene, what is this?" One from a great uncle. "This seems excessive." My mother had sent that invoice to 48 people because she wanted a jury. She wanted the weight of the whole Whitfield family pressing down on me until I cracked and apologized. But here's what she miscalculated. A group chat doesn't just go one direction. Once you open that door, everyone walks through it. And not everyone walks your way. I did a quiet inventory. Of those 48 people, at least 12 were old enough to remember the years Pearl had me. Wayne remembered. Dottie half remembered. Pearl's brother Gerald, 79, living in Macon. He remembered. These weren't strangers. These were people who'd driven to this same house 30 years ago and seen a baby on Pearl's hip and no Marlene in sight. They just hadn't talked about it. Because families don't talk about the things that matter most. They talk about potato salad recipes and who's bringing the folding chairs. Marlene assumed silence meant agreement. She was wrong. Silence just meant nobody had a reason to speak up. Until now. Brooke pulled her phone out and scrolled through the chat. "Mom," she said quietly, "people are asking questions." "Let them ask," Marlene said. But her voice had lost half a decibel of confidence, and I caught it. So did Pearl. I wasn't ready to send the photograph yet. I needed Marlene to commit a little deeper. Because every word she said now was another word she couldn't take back. The heat was climbing. 5:30 p.m. in coastal Georgia, and the sun was still heavy, pressing through the porch screens, throwing long shadows across the table. The citronella candles were starting to pool. Somewhere behind us, the grill popped and hissed where Wayne had left the lid open. This is the part where I need to slow down. Because what happened next didn't happen fast. It happened in the specific, dragging, suffocating way that family confrontations do, where every second stretches and everyone is watching and no one blinks. Marlene stood again. She tapped her glass with a spoon. The same move she uses at church luncheons when she wants a room's attention. "I want to say something to everyone here and everyone in the chat." The yard went still. Even the cicadas seemed to pull back. My daughter Billy has had every opportunity I could give her. I paid for her birth. I paid for her childhood. I helped with college before she quit. And what has she given me? Nothing. Not a dollar. Not a thank you. Not even a visit on most holidays. She paused for effect. So today, on Mother's Day, I'm asking her, in front of all of you, to either make it right or admit what she is. Tanner had his phone up, filming. 2 other cousins did the same. Marlene pointed at me. "Billy, stand up." I didn't stand. "Say it," she said. "Say thank you, Mom, for everything you sacrificed." I looked at her. No. The word sat in the air like a stone dropped into a pond. No. No. Because the invoice is wrong. And you know it. Marlene didn't flinch. She turned to the table like a lawyer presenting to a jury. "You see this? 35 years, and she can't even say thank you. This is what I've dealt with. A daughter who left school, opened a little bakery, and acts like the world owes her something." A few relatives shifted uncomfortably, but a few others, the ones Marlene had primed for weeks, nodded. My mother's younger cousin, a woman named Patsy, spoke up from the far end. "Billy, it's Mother's Day. Just say you're grateful." "I am grateful," I said. "To the person who raised me." Marlene's smile faltered. "I raised you." "Mom." I kept my voice level. "You sent a bill for $347,000 to 48 people and called me a failure. On Mother's Day, in front of my grandmother, the woman who actually— Don't you dare." Marlene's voice cracked for the first time. Not from emotion, from control slipping. "Don't you dare sit there and pretend I wasn't your mother. I'm not pretending anything. I'm asking you to be honest about the timeline. I was there. She shouted it. The yard absorbed it. A child at the far table started crying. Brooke put her hand on Marlene's arm. Mom, sit down, please. Marlene shook her off. Her eyes were wet now, and her lip was trembling, and for a half second I saw something underneath the performance. Something raw, and human, and desperate. She needed this to be true. She needed the story she'd told for 30 years to hold, because if it didn't, then what was left? I could have destroyed her right there. I could have stood up and listed every year, every address, every night that Pearl sat up with me while Marlene was building her new life 3 states away. I could have told the table about the monthly checks I'd been sending Pearl for the last 6 years, for the roof repair, the physical therapy after the second stroke, the new water heater, because I was the one taking care of the woman who took care of me. But that's not how you win a fight like this. You don't win by out-talking someone who has rehearsed their version for 30 years. You win by showing something they can't talk around. Mom, I said, you billed me for ages 0 to 7. I raised you. Then you'll recognize what I'm about to show everyone. I picked up my phone, opened the camera roll, scrolled to the folder, found the image. It was a Polaroid, scanned years ago. Faded, slightly overexposed, the colors gone amber the way Polaroids do. In it, a woman stands on this very porch, the same screens, the same magnolia, the same warped floorboards, holding a baby on her hip. The baby is wearing a yellow onesie. The woman is smiling. She has flour on her apron. The woman is Pearl. The baby is me. And the date, written on the white strip at the bottom in Pearl's careful handwriting, May 9th, 1993, Mother's Day. There is no Marlene in the frame. There is no Marlene in the house. There was no Marlene in my life that year. I looked at my mother. I looked at the group chat still open on my screen. I typed one line beneath the photo. Happy Mother's Day to the woman who actually raised me. My thumb hovered over send. I want you to understand something. I didn't plan this. I didn't come to Mother's Day dinner with a strategy or an ambush. I came with a cake. I came because Pearl asked me to come, and because even after everything, I still showed up when family called. But Marlene sent a bill. She called me a failure in front of 48 people. She charged me $60,000 for 7 years of parenting she didn't do. And the only thing I had, the only thing I've ever had against the story she built, was a single photograph of the woman who actually held me. I pressed send. The photo dropped into the group chat at 5:47 p.m. on Mother's Day. Every phone on that porch buzzed simultaneously. Then the phones of the people in Atlanta buzzed, the phones in Jacksonville, in Macon, in Hinesville, in Augusta. 48 phones, one image, one caption. People looked down at their screens, then looked up, then looked at Marlene, then looked at Pearl, who was sitting in her chair with her hands folded on the table, not saying a word, not reacting to the murmur that was growing like wind through a field of sawgrass. Tanner lowered his camera. Dottie covered her mouth. Wayne closed his eyes and shook his head slowly, the way a man does when the thing he suspected for 30 years finally gets confirmed out loud. Brooke stared at her phone. She zoomed in on the photo. She looked at the date. She looked at Pearl. She looked at Marlene. And for the first time in my memory, Brooke didn't defend our mother. She just set her phone face down on the table and didn't say a word. This is the moment everything turns. But before I go on, if you were me, would you have sent that photo, or would you have let it go? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to hear what happened the next morning, when 47 people did one thing and Grandma did something else entirely, hit subscribe. Because what comes next is something I never saw coming. The first person to speak was Uncle Wayne. He didn't address Marlene. He addressed the table. I remember that porch, he said, pointing at his phone screen. I remember Pearl standing right there with that baby. Summer of '93. Marlene had been gone since... what? Thanksgiving the year before? Wayne, Marlene said sharply. I was in Tallahassee. You were in Tallahassee for 2 years, Marlene. Dottie looked up from her phone. Marlene, you billed her for years that Mama raised her? That photograph doesn't prove anything. Marlene's voice had gone shrill. It proves someone is holding your baby, Wayne said, and it isn't you. A second cousin named Judy, 61, sitting near the grill, looked at Pearl. Miss Pearl, is this true? You had Billy those whole first years? Pearl folded her napkin once, then twice. 7 years, she said simply. From the day Marlene left her in the bassinet on my porch, until the day Marlene drove back and took her. Billy was 7. She'd already lost her first tooth in this kitchen. That detail, the first tooth, did something to the table. It made the number real. It wasn't about invoices anymore. It was about a grandmother pulling a tooth and putting a quarter under a pillow, and braiding hair for picture day, and making breakfast every morning while her own daughter was somewhere else, building a life that didn't include her child. Marlene gripped the edge of the table. I came back. I came back and I raised her from 8 on. That counts for something. Nobody said it didn't, I told her. But you don't get to bill me for years you missed. Pearl reached for my phone. I handed it to her. She held it up so the table could see. I took this picture. Mother's Day, 1993. Billy was 2. I'd had her since she was 4 months old. She set the phone down. I didn't raise her at a loss. I raised her because she was mine to raise, because her mother left and somebody had to. I watched Marlene. She was gripping the armrest of her chair so hard her knuckles had gone white. Mom, you don't need to. Yes, I do. Pearl's voice was even, the way a level is even, perfectly calibrated, no room for tilt. For 30 years I kept my mouth shut. Because you're my daughter and I thought you'd come around. I thought you'd at least tell the truth to yourself, even if you couldn't tell it to everyone else. She paused. The ceiling fan clicked. But today, you sent a bill. You charged that girl $60,000 for the years I spent rocking her to sleep, teaching her the alphabet on soup cans, walking her to the bus stop every morning in the rain. Pearl looked at me. I taught her to read. I taught her to measure flour. I taught her to say please and thank you. And when she grew up and opened a bakery, I thought, that's my kitchen. That's what she learned in my kitchen. My throat closed. I didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of 48 people and my mother's crumbling face. But I wanted to. Because Pearl had never said that before. She'd shown it 1,000 ways, but she'd never put it in words. Now she had. And everyone heard. It was Tanner who cracked it open. He'd been scrolling through the group chat on his phone, reading the responses from relatives who weren't there in person, and he looked up with a strange expression. Aunt Marlene, he said, why now? Why send this invoice today, right before Brooke's wedding? The question hung. Marlene didn't answer. Brooke turned to her. Mom? Still nothing. Brooke's voice dropped lower. Mom, are we okay on money? Marlene pressed her lips together and stared at the magnolia tree like it owed her an answer. Because I saw the catering estimate, Brooke continued, and the venue deposit, and the florist. Mom, where is that money coming from? Dottie set down her plate. Marlene, you told me you had Brooke's wedding handled. I do. With what? Wayne asked. Your commissions have been down since the market turned. I know because my neighbor listed with your office and pulled out. The yard went from tense to something worse. Quiet comprehension. The family was doing the same math I'd done months ago. Marlene wasn't sending me a bill because she believed I owed her. She was sending it because she needed money. The failure she raised at a loss was supposed to write a check big enough to cover the wedding she couldn't afford. My half-sister looked at my mother the way you look at a map when you realize you've been driving in the wrong direction for hours. You told me Billy was selfish, Brooke said softly. You told me she never gave anything back. Marlene finally spoke. She hasn't. She paid for Grandma's roof, Brooke said, and her physical therapy. Grandma told me last Christmas. She billed me for years she wasn't even there, and the bill was never about the past. It was about Brooke's wedding. I stood up. Not fast. Not dramatic. I pushed my chair back the way you do when dinner's over and it's time to clear the table. I didn't send that photo to humiliate you, Mom. Marlene wouldn't look at me. I sent it because I'm done being called something I'm not. I am not your failure. I am not your debtor. I left school because Grandma needed someone and nobody else stepped up. I paused. I looked at Lacey's car seat through the screen door. Sam had brought her in, and she was on a blanket in the living room, asleep with her thumb in her mouth. No idea that her mother's family was unraveling 10 feet away. Don't ever call me a failure in front of my daughter. I said it calmly. I said it once, and I meant it for the rest of my life. Then I sat back down and put my hand on Pearl's arm. Thank you, Grandma. For everything you did. For everything you're still doing. Pearl patted my hand. Her eyes were wet but her jaw was set, and she nodded once, the way she does when the books balance and the numbers are right. Marlene was looking at the shoebox. She knew what else was in there. She'd known all along. This is over, she said, standing. I'm leaving. That's your choice, I said. She grabbed her purse. Brooke didn't move. Brooke, let's go. I'm staying, Brooke said. Marlene stared at her. Excuse me? I'm staying. I want to talk to Grandma. My mother walked off the porch alone. Her heels clicked on the gravel driveway, and then her car started, and then she was gone. The magnolia leaves didn't move. The sweet tea sweated on the table. Nobody touched it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Sam had put Lacey to bed and was sitting next to me on the couch, not talking, just being there, which is the thing he does best. I scrolled through the group chat. It had been going for hours. The Polaroid sat at the top of the thread like an exhibit in a trial, and beneath it, message after message after message. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were weighing in. Pearl's brother Gerald, 79, in Macon, typed in all caps the way older people do. I remember Pearl having that baby. Marlene was not there. This is the truth. Dottie sent a voice note. I played it low. Marlene, I love you. But this was wrong. You know it was wrong. Judy from the Grill posted a photo of her own, a Whitfield family reunion from 1995. In it, Pearl is holding me on her lap. I'm about 4. Marlene is nowhere in the frame. By 10 p.m., people had started leaving the group. Not just muting it, leaving, then blocking. I didn't ask them to. I didn't suggest it. But one by one, 47 members of the Whitfield family group chat either left the conversation or blocked Marlene's number entirely. Sam watched the count with me. 44, he said. Then, 46. Then, just before midnight, 47. There was one person left who hadn't blocked Marlene. Pearl. I texted her. Grandma, are you okay? She responded 3 minutes later. I'm fine, baby, I'm not blocking her. You don't have to. I know. But I'm not finished. I stared at that message for a long time. I'm not finished. I didn't know what she meant. I would by morning. 47 people blocked my mother. The 48th, Grandma, didn't. What do you think she did instead? Forgave her? Or something heavier? Guess in the comments before I tell you. And if you're hooked, subscribe. Because what Grandma did the next morning is the part of this story I will never forget. It's the part I still think about at night. The next afternoon, Pearl called a gathering. Not through the group chat. By phone. One call at a time, the way she's done it for 60 years. Come to the house, 3 o'clock. I have something to show everyone. I drove over with Lacey in the back seat and a pit in my stomach. Sam stayed home. He said this was a Whitfield thing, and he was right. When I arrived, the porch was full again. Dottie, Wayne, Tanner, Judy, Gerald, who'd driven 3 hours from Macon, a handful of others. Brooke was there too, sitting on the porch swing with her arms folded, looking like she hadn't slept. No Marlene. Pearl was sitting at the head of the potluck table, which had been cleared of everything except the shoebox. She looked smaller than yesterday, and I wondered for a moment if this was too much for her. The confrontation, the heat, the weight of what she was about to do. Then she looked up at me and I saw it. That steel behind the softness. The same look she used to give me when I was 8 and came home crying from school. The look that said, "We handle this." "I kept this box for 30 years, Pearl said. Her voice was clear. "I kept it because I hoped I'd never need it. I kept it to protect my daughter." She pulled the rubber band off the shoebox. "But yesterday Marlene stood in my yard on Mother's Day and called my granddaughter a failure. She charged Billy for years of love that I gave freely, so I'm done protecting her." She opened the lid. Inside, a stack of photographs, a small leather-bound expense notebook, and a single folded letter, yellowed at the creases. Pearl unfolded the letter carefully, the way you handle something that might tear. It was written in blue ballpoint on lined notebook paper, the kind you buy in a 3-pack from the dollar store. The handwriting was small and slanted. Marlene's handwriting. Pearl held it up. "This is the letter my daughter left on my kitchen table the night she brought Billy to me. November 14th, 1990. She didn't read it aloud. Not all of it. She read 3 lines. The first: "Mom, I can't do this." The second: "She's too much. I'm not cut out for it." The third, and Pearl's voice caught for just a moment before she finished: "Please take her. I'll come back when I'm ready." And the word that appeared twice in the margins, scrawled like an afterthought: failure. The porch was silent, not the polite silence of people waiting their turn. The absolute silence of people understanding, all at once, that the story they'd been told for 30 years had been backwards. Marlene hadn't sacrificed for Billy. She'd left. She'd called her own baby a burden in her own handwriting and walked away. And then, years later, she came back and rewrote the whole thing, turned herself into the hero and her daughter into the disappointment. Brooke was shaking, not crying, just shaking. She whispered. "She told me she was always there." Gerald, all the way from Macon, took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Pearl, we should have said something sooner." "Yes," Pearl said. "We all should have." She set the letter on the table, face up, and placed the shoebox lid beside it so nothing would blow away. "She billed me for years she wasn't even there." The letter proved it in her own hand. Pearl wasn't done. She reached into the shoebox and pulled out the small leather notebook. It was a ledger, columns of dates, amounts, and names, all in Pearl's precise bookkeeper's hand. "For the last 9 years," she said, "I have been lending Marlene money. She asked me not to tell anyone." She opened to a flagged page. $2,000 when her car payment was late, $5,000 for a closing that fell through, $12,000 toward Brooke's wedding venue deposit, $800 here, $1,500 there. She closed the book. "I kept records because that's who I am. The total comes to $41,600. Dottie put her hand over her mouth. Wayne exhaled hard. "So, when she said nobody helps her?" Dottie asked. "She was being helped," Pearl said. "By me. Every time. And she never told a soul." I hadn't known the full amount. I knew Pearl had helped. Pearl had mentioned it once, in passing, the way she mentions everything, like a footnote in an audit. But $41,000. From an 81-year-old woman on a fixed pension. Pearl stood. It took her a moment, and Tanner moved to help her, but she waved him off. "Marlene, if you're listening to anyone who repeats this, and I know you will be, hear me now." She addressed the porch the way she might have addressed an office full of accountants 30 years ago, direct, without embellishment. "I am done. No more money, no more covering. And until you tell the truth, the real truth, to your daughters, to this family, to yourself, you are not welcome in this house." That was it. No shouting, no cursing, no tears. Just a line, drawn by an 81-year-old bookkeeper, in permanent ink. After Pearl finished, Brooke came to me. She was standing on the porch steps with mascara tracks on her cheeks and her engagement ring catching the late afternoon light. "Billy." I waited. I believed her. My whole life, I believed everything she told me, that you were selfish, that you walked away, that you didn't care. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I'm so sorry." I hugged her. I didn't plan to. It just happened, the way it does when someone you've been distant from finally stops pretending. She held on longer than I expected. I didn't know about the letter, she said into my shoulder. I didn't know she left you. I know. And the money you've been sending Grandma, the roof, the therapy, all of it. Mom told me you never contributed to anything. Mom told you a lot of things. Brooke pulled back and looked at me. What do I do now? You figure out what's true, and you go from there. I didn't pile on. I didn't list Marlene's sins or demand that Brooke pick a side. I didn't post anything online. I didn't call anyone to make sure they'd heard the story the right way. I'd said what needed saying. The photograph said the rest. And the letter in Marlene's own handwriting, said everything else. On the drive home, Sam asked if I was okay. I watched the Spanish moss blur past the window. Lacey was singing to herself in the back seat, something she'd learned from Pearl. An old lullaby, the one Pearl used to sing to me when I was the age Lacey is now. Yeah, I said. I think I'm okay. 2 weeks later, the fallout had settled into something measurable. Marlene lost her seat on the church hospitality committee. Asked to step back, which in Southern Baptist circles means exactly what it sounds like. 3 real estate clients withdrew their listings. Word travels in Savannah, not fast, but thoroughly, the way water seeps into a foundation until one morning you notice the crack. Brooke's big wedding was canceled. Not the marriage, just the production. She and Garrett went to the courthouse instead. She wore a white sundress and told me afterward it was the best decision she'd made. Turns out I didn't need 200 people watching me say I do. I just needed to mean it. Pearl, true to her word, did not call Marlene, did not text, did not send money. Marlene started counseling. I heard through Brooke she cried for 40 minutes in the second session. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt tired. My own life didn't change in dramatic ways. I went back to work on Tuesday and rolled out 600 biscuits for a corporate breakfast. That's what a bakery is. Not a story, just a schedule. But cousins who hadn't called in years started calling. Tanner, who'd joked about free cakes, showed up and asked if I was hiring. I was. In July, the Savannah Waterfront Association offered me the Fall Festival catering contract. 3 days, 4,000 attendees. It had nothing to do with the drama. They'd been watching my work for a year. What I did post, weeks later, was a photograph. Pearl, 81, eating lemon pound cake at my shop counter, flower in her hair. Caption: The woman who raised me. Marlene liked the photo, didn't comment, just tapped the heart. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't enough. But it was the first honest thing she'd done in 30 years. In August, Pearl invited me for supper. Pot roast, good china, sweet tea from scratch. I didn't open that box to hurt your mother, she said. I opened it because she stood in my yard and called the result of my work a failure. She set the spoon down. I chose to raise you when I was 50, and my pension barely covered one person. I'd do it again every day, but I will not sit in my own house and let someone charge you for my love. You didn't destroy her, she said. She did that herself. You just stopped carrying her lie. We ate with the screen door open, magnolia and cut grass in the air, the ceiling fan clicking on every 4th rotation. Thanksgiving. Pearl's house again. Table set for 14. Smaller, but everyone here chose to be here. Through the kitchen window, I see Marlene's car. She sits behind the wheel a full minute, then walks in and asks Pearl if she can help. Pearl hands her a paring knife. Carrots. When she sees me, Billy, I'm glad you came. I said I would. Your shop, the festival contract. That's really something. Thanks, Mom. No hug, no tearful reconciliation. She's in therapy. She's trying. After dinner, I sit on the porch with Lacey and pull up the Polaroid on my phone. See that lady? That's your great-grandma Pearl. And that baby? That's Mama. She's holding you, Lacey says. Yeah, baby. She held me a long time. My mother sent me a bill for $347,000 to prove I was a failure. I answered with one photograph. And the truth raised me all over again. If this story stayed with you, hit like and subscribe. If you've ever stood up for yourself and your own family, tell me in the comments. Check the description for more stories. See you in the next one.